Sri Lanka is facing its worst economic crisis since its independence. But just how did the situation get this bad? There has been economic mismanagement by successive governments.
In Sri Lanka today, a gas cylinder costs 4,200 rupees. 1 kg rice costs 220 rupees.
There is no fuel, there are no medicines, critical surgeries are being cancelled. Doctors say the economic crisis.
The protesters demanded that the government step down immediately for mishandling the country's economy. Experts say that Sri Lanka's recovery will neither be fast nor easy.
A very pleasant good evening, each one of you. I honor to welcome distinguished guest, Mr. Safran Saly, Head of Department Economics, Lyceum Group of Schools. We're glad to have you here, sir, to discuss about present economic and political crisis of Sri Lanka. And we are looking forward some solution and suggestion which will help to overcome present economic and political crisis of Sri Lanka. As we all know that Sri Lanka is experiencing its worst economic crisis ever. Could you explain briefly about current economic and political state of our country?
Thank you, Mr. Kumar, for inviting me to give some ideas from my side. What I have experienced with the current situations and what I see from my point of view, what is the economic situation of our country and the political situations. Going with your first question, we are looking at current situation of the Sri Lanka to see the economic and the political state of our country. Now, if you take the economic situation, I think we can clearly see what our economy is going through. Mainly the shortage of food shortage, which is, I think, the main problem at present. Even though what from a middle income crowd, now, if you are looking from a upper middle income, you won't see the shortage. But falling into the lower income category, if you are witnessing those type of people, you will actually see the food shortage is at a very high level. So people on an upper income level don't experience much, but actually Sri Lanka is going to a very big shortage. And then the fuel queues, which we see. So that is another situation in our country. I think more than that, it's the emergence of black market. It actually started with the dollar black market. Now we see the black market in many types of products in Sri Lanka. Fuel, even milk powder is traded in the black market. There was a time. Now the milk powder is available and it's not, the black market is reduced. And then looking at the economic situation on an inflation point. So the inflation at the present, we see 60% plus. And from my opinion, I see going to increase with shortage in supplies. We're going to see increase in inflation definitely. And in certain sectors, we're experiencing unemployment as well. So we see an unemployment occurring in certain sectors. Or mostly what from my point of view I see is underemployed. People are working below their potential. Their working hours have been reduced, and a widening income inequality is what we notice in our economy at the moment. So if we sum up, those are the economic situation at present in our country. So one issue is actually leading to another issue at the moment. And then looking at the political state, there is so much of delays in policy, which I think should have been done at the beginning of the year. The policy reform should have taken place at the beginning of the year, but I think we are very late in bringing up the policy reforms and political instability. We still have a doubt whether Ranil is going to continue as the president or not. So there is a crowd saying, yes, he will, and there is another crowd saying, no, we need him to step down. There is a public crowd where there is loss of trust in the political system. When we take the economic and the political state, this is the current situation at the time. And still, I see on a political state, there is still greed for power and money and the position. So I think that is the present state of Sri Lanka from my point of view, what I see.
In your point of view, what are the main certain factors which are facilitated for sudden economic downfall of Sri Lanka? If we specifically point it out.
Okay, if I am to say, I wouldn't say it's a sudden, right? I wouldn't say it's a sudden. This, when I used to teach about the Sri Lankan economics in 2019, where there was like budget reforms, where we had a lot of tax cuts. So that is where actually it all started. A continuous budget deficit, low tax revenue, I think was one of the main factors which started to affect the Sri Lankan economy, which people did not realize at that moment. People were all happy because there were tax cuts, but they were not looking at a long term. That is where I would say it's not a sudden fall like a lot of people say. We have been falling falling gradually, which people did not realize until their basic necessities were hit. That is what I would say. Then COVID came in, COVID added to it. So when there were budget deficits, the government started borrowing, debt started accumulating, over 7,000 million debts been accumulated. Then COVID had an effect because that resulted in our foreign remittances falling. Foreign remittances started falling because there were a lot of job cuts from the Middle East because of COVID. That is where the foreign remittances started falling. Then we have the issue of tourism falling because of COVID. So adding on to foreign remittances, falling tourism, those are the two main factors which contributed more to the downfall. And then other points that I see, if you see from a longer term perspective, not sudden, but it has started the lack of export diversification. We are very less in terms of export diversification. Now, there was a statistics where for the last 20 years, we added only 7 items for our export, whereas Vietnam added 48 items. So we can see the comparison. So from my point of view, I see that it's not because of foreign remittances, tourism, which are our biggest incomes, but we have been not expanding on our other inflows as well, lack of exports. So starting with budget deficit, debt accumulation, COVID adding on, then the currency depreciation played a part. So I think overall made Sri Lankan situation worse. So we fell into a recession and now we are in a deep recessionary situation with all those factors adding on to our situation.
Sir, day by day, things are getting worse in Sri Lanka. Citizens are struggling with the power cuts, questions, continuous increasing in commodity price and cost of living. What are the short-term solutions that you can come up with to overcome this current situation in Sri Lanka?
Looking at the current situation, like power cuts, fuel queues, when you take them together, the reason is our fuel imports are limited. With the fuel imports limited, if we can increase the supply, that is going to be solved. But at the current situation, we are unable to increase the imports of fuel because we are having a currency shortage. We don't have the dollar reserves to go for a continuous supply. In order to solve those situations, at the moment, the current short-term solution is trying to ration. So we have to come up with priorities where the fuel is needed. Short-term solution, the government, the ministries in charge will have to come up with some rationing situations and commodity prices. Now, when it comes to commodity prices, it's a global crisis at the moment. Inflation is not only in Sri Lanka, around the world. Now, if you take UK, the inflation is about 9% plus, and they are taking reforms to reduce the inflation. So it's a global crisis where we will have to face, but short-term solutions is where we have to build our reserves in order to tackle the commodity price, mainly the energy. So if we can control the energy prices, it can actually reduce the rate of inflation. With the current interest rates being increased, I think it will help, but it can't be a short-term solution. The impact is going to be only at a long-term concern. So we will have to be a bit patient. Probably you can see a disinflationary situation in the near future. Then other options that I see is to overcome these would be privatization. Going for a privatization will help to overcome this situation. And more importantly is to work on the IMF bailout. As soon as possible, as soon as we can get the IMF bailout, coming up with policy reforms for debt sustainability, I think that is the priority. That's what I see as a solution. If we can get the IMF bailout going up soon and going through the IMF framework, that will actually solve part of our problem, trying to at least get the basic essentials done, where I think most of the population is affected because of that. Once the essentials are sorted, so the priority in the short term would be to get the essentials sorted through the IMF bailout, and I think then we can look for long-term reform.
Next question is, as per the reports of Central Bank of Sri Lanka, there are some government-owned enterprises that are consistently experiencing losses. For an example, SL Electricity Board, SL Petroleum Corporation, SL Railway and Sri Lanka Airlines. So the question is, what are the improvements that we can make in order to eliminate the losses and ensure the profitable operations?
Now, if we are looking at these nationalized enterprises, Electricity Board, Sri Lanka Petroleum, Railway, yes, they have been making losses. One thing what I see is they wanted to keep the prices low rather than matching up the prices with the global market. One of the reasons that they were keeping the prices low, rather gradually increasing them, one thing is on a political note. In order to win the election, so they have been subsidizing and they have been keeping the prices low. So that is one of the reasons for the main losses. So at the moment, improvements is one thing is on a performance wise, whether to what they will have to do is examine where the cost is actually high. Is it in terms of labor costs, or is it in terms of the production system, or is it because they have to import at high prices? So if they can look into that and see what needs to be done, like probably reduction of staff benefits can help. Because when it comes to state employees, there are a lot of benefits attached. They have so much of allowances. I think recently also there was a report coming up saying this people in the electricity board reading accurate reading and allowance, reading the meter allowance. So I think these extra benefits can be cut, holiday benefits. So if they can do reforms on that note and making sure that the efficiency, the productivity levels are increased within these corporations, I think that can eliminate the losses. And plus, the tariffs will have to be revised. Now, there is a two-way argument going on. Tariffs shouldn't be increased, but from my point of view, yes, the tariffs will have to be increased. So government has been subsidizing, but at the moment, government can't subsidize anymore because we have already in budget deficits and our budget deficits can't increase further, and plus we don't have money. To improve these loss-making industries, they will have to revise the tariffs. That is one of the options. People will have to face a hard situation. We have to agree. We have to face it. And the other thing is privatization. So those are the options that government has at the moment. If they can privatize and come up with a good deal with a foreign company, I think that will help. Or even they can privatize locally so that they can make some improvements to these corporations.
Then the next question is, tax system plays a vital role in the fiscal policy of the country. So what do you think about Sri Lankan tax system, and what are the amendments that you can propose to have a proper tax system?
When it comes to the Sri Lankan tax system, as far as I see, it's totally biased based on whoever comes into power. So even 2019, the tax cuts were there because in order to win votes, they said that we will be cutting the taxes. So the tax system in Sri Lanka is mostly on a political note, on a political favoration. So they change the tax system according to their preferences, which is actually a cause for our situation at the moment. So that is how I see the Sri Lankan tax system. And most of the corporates make use of this tax system with the political influences. So the amendments, if I see, is tax base will have to be increased. That is one of the things that I am expecting in the coming budget proposal. And the tax threshold, if they can bring the tax threshold back to it was before 2019, I think that will increase the tax revenue for Sri Lanka. And I think it will help to tackle certain situations. So in the coming budget, and I think that the taxes are going to increase, and those are the solutions that is there for the country at the moment. So that is what I see. They can come with a proper tax system, increasing the tax base for now and the tax threshold as well, so that it will help our economy to recover with the deficit.
When considering economic crisis, one of the main root causes political instability in Sri Lanka. Talking about political strategy, the first question is, it's observed over decades that when creating policies, politicians are trying to maximize their benefit rather than maximizing benefit of citizens. What are the political amendments that can control this conflict of interest situation? That's talking about self-interest, and whenever the new political party comes to rule the country, they are acting based on their self-interest rather than working for a country. How we can, make changes in acting in order to build up the country in political perspective.
Now, we have been seeing for decades that whoever comes into power, they find ways to maximize their benefits. So the problem here is, who is going to bring this political amendment? It all have to start from which political party is being elected as the governing party. Whoever comes into power will have to come up with some political amendments where they can come up with reforms where they have to monitor the assets of the politicians. I think if they can bring a system of monitoring whatever the projects they handle, if they can bring about and something accountable. So if those projects that each ministry is handling is very transparent, a system in place where those projects are being monitored, the government expenditures related to that, plus the revenue streams from those projects, because mostly what happens is why they are maximizing the benefits is the projects they handle, they have a commission, they overprice it so that they can benefit from a commission. So if there is a system in place where they can monitor those projects, keep a record of what are the expenditures on those projects, and see what projects can be handled and whether Sri Lanka can handle those projects rather than giving it to foreign companies, because that is where a lot of corruption happens. And declaring their private assets before taking up a ministry and then regularly monitoring their asset structure. I think those amendments, if they can bring it into the political leaders, whoever takes on the ministries, I think that can help, but I'm not sure how practical it's going to be. But if those things can come in, I think there can be some changes.
My next question is, currently China as a major influencer. So apart from that, USA and other countries, do you think that they are also influencing to our political and policy making process? If so, what are the motives they have?
It's like this: if any country is trying to interfere into another country without any benefit, they are not going to interfere. So if they think that trying to have connections with our political leaders, and if these political leaders can approve certain things of their country's projects, definitely they are going to have an influence and they are going to work through, because they are going to benefit. Now, even if you take China's most probably because our political leaders were ready to sign up for Chinese any offers. So whatever the China came up with projects, so the political leaders they were ready to sign up because they were not pocketing out their money. It was all people's money, and it was all from the government budget, giving contracts to China and getting a commission from them, pure corruption. So countries, leaders from other countries, leaders know, right, if these are the politicians who are there and we can work around them, they normally want to have connections with the political leaders. If you see, for example, now when the president comes in, now when a new president is appointed or new prime minister is appointed, another country comes in and wishes, they want to have a conversation because they know that a good relationship will help them. If they think that they can have some link, and definitely it is going to influence the political decisions. Any leader from, like you said, from USA or now even India, what I see was India started helping straight away because they wanted to push China out and bring in their help in so that they can get benefit from Sri Lanka as a neighboring country. And they wanted to put China out because they fear of China monitoring their economy. So every country has their own benefits. So they mainly work on a motive of how, as a country, they can benefit. Now, Sri Lanka, we have resources. Now, whenever they strike a deal, they want something in return, maybe in the short term or long term. So in that place, without a motive, definitely they are not going to help. So even India came in and helped Sri Lanka and connected with the political leaders, influenced the political decisions, because they know they are having some benefit in the future or no, and they can influence the decisions of the political leaders of a country. So mainly the political leaders run the country. So if they can have connections, definitely they have some control over another country. That is what I see, countries having influence on political decisions.
So my next question is, so this is regarding politicians who are elected by the citizens of Sri Lanka. So is it properly representing the people's needs? And do you think the voice of the ordinary people are heard and properly addressed?
Yes, it is elected by the citizens. Now, looking over the years, politicians up to now they have mainly focused on their own power, their own position. They always want to safeguard their position and see how much benefit they can get from the time period they are in power, for the time period they are in ministry. They probably do something that will benefit them. Maybe some part is beneficial for the people. And plus, when it comes to the ordinary people, they don't voice out until their basic essentials are affected. Now, even now, corruption is nothing new for Sri Lanka. We have seen corruption over the years and decades. So when it comes to ordinary people, educated people, they know this is happening. Even the normal people know that political parties are involved in corruption and everything, but they were not voicing out because they were satisfied with what they had. They had the basic essentials. They could live a life. And even they did not want to voice out because it was not a big issue. Now the ordinary people have started voicing out because their basic necessities are getting affected. No gas to cook. So even in those situations, people in rural areas, they have not seen an issue because they don't use gas. So those people in rural areas, there is a crowd that they think, okay, it is not going to get affected. So in that case, politicians also know this is the crowd that they are not going to tell anything. There is a crowd who are not going to voice out. So they continue to do all the corruptions and benefit themselves. And voice of ordinary people are not heard much unless there is somebody behind it, a strong party behind it, unless there is another political group behind it. Even when it comes to the protesters, the Aragalaya, they consider that there is a political party behind it. As a normal people, until the whole country gathers and voice up, a certain group voicing up is not going to be heard from my point.
Sir, could you please explain about political instability of the country and foreign investments? These economic crises, how it impact the foreign investments, and what are the short-term policies, political solutions and policies you think we can take?
Okay, when it comes to the political instability and the foreign investment, main important thing is if we need foreign investments, political stability is a must. Because foreign investments is something where they have to have a political backup to bring in all their foreign investments. It can be in different forms, whether it's a greenfield investment or maybe it's a takeover or a company that is been establishing. So the political stability is important because they need an assurance that they are going to get a return on their foreign investments. So when the political parties are changing, when there is no certainty that who is under each ministry, the foreign investors are not going to come and put their money here, not going to take a risk because they don't know whom to deal with. So when there is no political proper agenda, proper system in place, they don't know whom to deal with their foreign investments. So that is where political stability becomes an important thing for foreign investments. And with the social unrest, talking about protesters and economy is very uncertain. Now you don't know actually what's going to happen tomorrow. And there is loss of confidence in the market. So when there is no much confidence in the market and we don't know whether the economy is going to grow or how long the economy is going to grow. Now today evening I was asking my friends that what is a good option for a 2.5 million investment. It's very difficult to take a decision because of the uncertainty. Now, the share market suddenly crashed because of the interest rates going up. And then we saw today or yesterday the share market is having a growth. And tomorrow we don't know what's going to happen. When there is very much of uncertainty, foreign investments is a problem. Now, if you take the Port City project, there was a call out for private foreign investors for the Port City, but we did not get any response because we don't know whether this project is going to continue or not. And now, if you see in our country situation, most of the constructions have been stopped. Most of the projects in relation to this have been stopped because of political instability and the ministries are not functioning. So with those situations, foreign investments are going to be hindered. If we are to attract foreign investors, mainly first thing is the political stability to be established. And then we have to have conversations with some foreign investment companies. We actually personally will have to approve. Now, rather giving just an open offer, we need to approach. We need to approach some foreign companies and make a deal about foreign investment. Give them some deal. Now, even I think they came up with 40% tax concession for people investing in Port City, but I did not see some personal approach. So I think for that, you have to have a stable political system. Okay, assign someone, okay, investment with person who is in charge of investment of the country will have to have a personal dealing, have to have a personal visit to attract. I think if they can come up with that, I think foreign investments will flow. But then again, it's all about having a stable political system in place, because that person to carry on the talks, it will need to continue.
So, from the economic context, do you think Sri Lanka can overcome this economic crisis? And in your point of view, how long will it take to become normal? And sir, are we experiencing any progress through past 6 to 7 months? What do you think, sir?
Overcome the economic crisis, definitely Sri Lanka can overcome. It's not that we can't overcome, we can overcome the economic crisis if proper reforms are in place and if all the political parties work together. Now, with the recent speech of President, I think it has given some hope, right? And the political parties are willing to work together. Even Sajid has extended his willingness to work. So, all about how reforms are going to be in place and all the political parties are going to work together to recover the economy. We can recover, not an issue, as far as the reforms are in place. But what I see is we are going to go through a rough time. We have to be a bit patient. As a country, as citizens of a country, if we are looking for a recovery, we have to work together. We are not to be blamed. There has been a political situation. The political leaders are to be blamed. But if we are also playing the blaming game, Sri Lanka is not going to recover. Now, there is a group keeping on blaming. Yes, they are to be blamed. It is not our fault. But we are not going to also cooperate. We can't recover our country. We also have to support as citizens of Sri Lanka so we can come out with economic crisis. So if we are going to involve in the black market and trying to make a self-gain and try not to go follow the rules and regulations what are being taken, whatever the reforms are being taken, and if we do not adapt to it, the economic recovery is going to be difficult. So if everything comes in place, public take responsibility as well for our recovery process, I think we can recover, overcome this economic crisis. But as for my opinion, get Sri Lanka back to our normal days, it's going to at least take about 4 to 5 years. If it is before that, well and good. But I think it is going to take about 4 to 5 years to get back to our normal situation. And even 4 to 5 years is a doubt, but we hope not that long. I won't say within the last 6 months. Actually, only in the last month, I think there is something that is happening. The only person I see who took some initiative and started doing something is probably the energy minister. Whether it's working or not is secondary thing. But he is trying to do something. That is what is needed. Actions will have to speak. So, then other reforms coming in place. So, I think things trying to fall in place and supporting from the other political parties and the public, I think we can recover. In the last 6 months, I think for 4 months or 5 months, the ministers have been fighting in the party. All they have been discussing is something which is not of priority. Now, that is something that I have noticed. There are a lot of things that are in priority when it comes to the crisis, but they have been discussing unnecessary things in the parliament. So, I have not seen any progress. So, only in the last month, I'm seeing a bit of a progress. So, we will have to be a bit patient and see how things are working. If the basic essentials are being sorted, I think we are looking forward to quick recovery, plus with the IMF bailout. So if the IMF bailout can be worked out soon, I think our recovery process will be a bit quicker.
Sri Lanka is heading towards a critical and serious economic crisis situation due to various reasons of mismanagement and mishandling in economic, administrative and political fields. As the coursework of the model Economy for Management, the learning partners were asked to assume that they should carry out the proposal for political and economic stability in Sri Lanka. Under this topic, we conduct an in-depth analysis regarding the current situation of the Sri Lankan economy. We discuss continuous widening of budget deficits, balance of payment, and current account deficit plus the lack of foreign reserves, domestic and foreign investment, inefficiency in public sector performance, loopholes in tax system, curtailing of the import capabilities, depreciation of Sri Lankan rupee, huge drop in foreign direct investment, excessive employee in public sector which leads unbearable amount, high salary and wage expenditure, breakdown in tourism, falls in export due to high export cost and many more issues under suitable short-term and long-term economic and political strategy. Accordingly, we expect the recommendations for the long-term and short-term solutions in the political and economic fields will be effective and feasible to overcome this critical economic crisis.